first thing that like I feel like we did was like kind of stop having expectations. Like first to talk about our expectations that we do have, and then to kind of maybe let go of them. That was the hardest. That was the hardest thing for me. Didn't really kind of think about it, but yeah, like leaving my expectations kind of behind, has been like a big constant in our relationship for sure.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 196. We're getting close to 200, babe. We're Finn and Emma, and today...
We've been saying that since like 170.
Hey, but we're getting really close now, so I'm really excited.
And we have an awesome interview for episode 200.
Yes, but that's not today. So you gotta wait for that one.
Well, I understand we're not that close.
Yes, we have an awesome interview scheduled for episode 200, but we also have an awesome interview today. And today's interview is with Jaret. He is the partner to Jamie, and Jamie came on episode 184.
Yeah, this is a super amazing, deep conversation. Jaret has, if you listen to Jamie's episode, which is not necessarily required, but if you have, you'll hear a little bit about the brain injury that he's dealt with, the fact that Jamie transitioned. And so Jaret has been there through that process, as well as that process with his dad. Mm-hmm. And some really amazing conversations on just releasing expectations. And so we hope you stick around. You're not just here to listen to us ramble at the beginning. It's a fantastic conversation. So thank you, Jaret, for coming on and sharing. And thank you, Jamie, as well, for sharing your story.
Yes. Before we jump into the show, we do have a couple of announcements. First up, a huge, huge thank you to our entire Patreon community. We are so incredibly grateful for each and every one of you and love all of you. If you're out there looking for an open-minded community, we'd love to have you join. Go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the Patreon tab for all of the details. But we did want to put a couple of quick dates out there. The first up, our next Q&A. These are question and answer kind of discussion groups with Finn and I and a whole bunch of amazing people. We do 2 of them every month, and the next one is actually tonight. That's August 25th. And if you missed tonight, don't worry, we'll have another one in September. But we do 2 of them, one at 9 p.m. Eastern and another one at 8 p.m. Pacific. So we'd love to have you come and check those out. We also have men's group call coming up on September 8th and a women's group call coming up on September 14th. So again, go to our website and click on the Patreon tab to find out more.
Yeah, and just to clarify, those are video Q&A, video men's group chats, and we also have an ongoing MeWe chat group where everybody just kind of keeps in touch throughout the month and just supports each other. So to echo Emma's gratitude, thank you to everybody who's a part of the community. It is huge. We love it. We lean on you all the time. So thank you. The other thing that we have coming up, a couple of really exciting things, our virtual meet and greets are back. We took the summer off.
We did. The last 2 months, not the whole summer. Well, the last 2 months.
We took most of the summer off.
Yes, but they're coming back. Our next one is Wednesday, September 22nd from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. These are open to everyone, and you can go and sign up on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the community tab, and you'll find the virtual meet and greet, all the information there.
Yeah, and while you're under that tab, you will see there are in-person meet and greets coming up as well.
Woohoo!
Super exciting. Finally doing it. First of all, to get it out of the way, we are doing all of our in-person meet and greets outdoors, and we are requiring vaccination. So if those things don't jive with you, cool. But that's how we're doing it. We're going to try to keep everybody as safe as possible, including ourselves.
Yes.
So the first one is going to be...
And you also have the option to come join our virtual one if you don't want to do the in-person.
Exactly. You don't have to be vaccinated for that one, and you don't have to be outdoors.
Right.
You could be, though.
You could be.
All right, so the first one is going to be in Ann Arbor, Michigan on September 28th. That is a Tuesday. from 6 to 9. It is at a park downtown near the hospital. All of the full details will be emailed to you once you sign up. We're super excited about it. We already have people signed up. It's going to be super fun. It's just an opportunity to come and meet other open-minded people in your area. And yeah, we'd love to have you. The other ones we've got coming up are October 13th in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, Georgia.
I was waiting for that.
All right. And October 27th in Tampa, Florida. The full, we don't have the location yet and all of the ways to sign up for Atlanta or Tampa. That will be available next week. We will announce it next week once we finalize the locations. However, I will just say, if you're in Tampa, we're struggling to find a great location. So please reach out to us. Send us an email. Help us find a location if you know of one. If you don't, we'll find one on our own. Mm-hmm. But if you know of one, we would love to hear about it.
Yes.
To stay up to date on all of the meet and greets and all of the other stuff going on, please go over to our website, sign up for our email list, and as soon as we announce those dates and as soon as we announce those locations and you're able to sign up, you will get an email. You'll be the first ones to sign up.
Yes.
I think we got it all.
Yes. Go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. All of the information is there. Also, you can contact us there on our website. Send us a voicemail, send us an email. We'd love to hear from all of you. And I think that's it. Let's go talk to Jaret. Welcome, Jaret, to the show. We're so excited that you're here today. And you reached out to us, I guess, after your partner, Jamie, was on our show, who was episode 184. And so thank you so much for coming and sharing as well.
Oh, man. I'm really excited and happy to be here. And after Jamie did his interview, and we've been talking about this for a while. And so after Jamie did his interview, I was he asked me if I would like to do an interview of my own. And I was yes, I have no idea, absolutely no idea what I'm going to say, but yes.
Well, we're happy you're here. And for anybody who's not maybe familiar with Jamie's episode or familiar with who you are, do you mind introducing yourself for the listeners? And
yes,
we'll kind of build from there.
Yes. So, hello, my name is Jaret, and my partner is Jamie, and we've been fans of your show and listened to quite a few of them. I think Jamie's probably listened to all of them. Me, not so much. I'll bounce around and pick and choose episodes, and then I'll listen to 6 episodes in a row, and then bounce around and surf through to find ones that are interesting and stuff like that. So, yeah.
No judgment.
No, not at all.
Yeah, thanks.
So I guess who is Jaret?
Wow, yikes. That's a complicated question. It's a complicated question. Who is Jaret? I've been asking myself that question for the past few years. Jaret is First Nations. I was born on the west coast of Canada in Vancouver, BC. And it's a beautiful place. And I grew up in Vancouver and in a place called Vancouver Island. It's an island off the west coast of British Columbia, Canada. But I lived there for I guess probably the first 37 years of my life. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And so what brings you to a podcast about non-monogamy? What does your relationship style look like today? And then maybe we can talk about how we got from the west coast of Canada to where you are and on a podcast talking about non-monogamy.
Yeah. So how I got from the west coast of Canada to here, just kind of outside of Toronto, is that is a story for sure. But first, how do I see kind of our relationship, and how did I arrive at talking to you on your podcast today? Is that's a good place to start. I like that. So for most of my life in romantic relationships, I was monogamous, and I had it, and it was more like a default. I didn't know any not that I didn't know, I knew that there was people did things that were, different from monogamy, whether it be swinging or, other styles or whatever. I that was kind of what I knew was like swinging. And so I was like, oh yeah, those people over there. And then I was single for a long time, and kind of just dealing with myself. And I met Jamie, and it was like we had kind of started a relationship, and we were talking, and when we were talking about like, how do we want this relationship to go or whatever, Jamie was like, well, I don't think that I can like be monogamous like to one person. That is not. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm comfortable with that. When I was like, comfortable to like explore that, I guess. Like I was open to it, but I was like not. I had no idea what that meant or anything like that. And probably for the first 4 years or so of our relationship, like it was kind of well, we didn't really have very many opportunities to be non-monogamous. And Jamie was going to school, and spending a lot of time, probably 12 to 16 hours a day, like working at school, or like or driving back and forth and stuff. And so at some point in school, he got into a relationship, and that was kind of my first experience of like where the rubber meets the road of like being non-monogamous, is like having my partner being like, well, I met this cool person, and we were spending a lot of time together, and and I want you to know about it. And I'm like, um, oh yes, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel kind of jealous and kind of left out, but happy, and I'm like learning about like even how I feel about being in like a non-monogamous relationship. And so it's been a learning experience, really. Like I came into it, like open and like ready to like, oh, okay, cool. This is something that I've not experienced before, or not had the chance to. Like all of my other relationships, it was just kind of by default, monogamous, because that's the way that people did relationships that I saw.
Right. Yeah, I was curious, and it doesn't sound like culturally or in your background that you had exposure to other types. Like you said, you knew that swinging existed and you knew that there were other ways, but you'd never really seen it modeled and you'd never really experienced it yourself.
Yes and no. That was how I felt when Jamie and I first got into our relationship. But then the more that we've been talking about non-monogamy just with each other, and like kind of exploring kind of what it means to us, and like looking back at my community and my family, like my family and my community, I can't think can't think of like very many people who throughout their lives in my like First Nations communities who'd spend like their entire life partnered with one person. People would get together for a couple of years and meet and have kids, and then kind of, drift apart or break up, and then move on to a different relationship. And, in our communities, and like, like I ask questions about like my parental units, because I have biological parents and then step parents and then like other parents who are like, and I asked, my parents and my kind of my step parents, like today, like what was your guys' relationship like that back then? Because like if when I'm thinking back, like I lived with my mom and her new husband, and then I lived with my dad and his new wife, and I remember like I was going back and forth, and like different, relationships were happening. And I wonder, is that they didn't call it non-monogamy, but, they're like, well, we're not fitting together anymore, so we're going to move on to something else, and that was an okay thing. And to be able to come back and to have like kids, and, we're connected by these children, so we're always going to have a relationship. And I wonder if that is a sort of non-monogamy, where kind of relationships are more fluid, and whether that was a part of my community growing up, like what I know now about non-monogamy, and like how my family did it when I was a little kid.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That. And I think it kind of sounds like it did inform a little bit of how you and Jamie like rolled into doing this. And it sounds like you were okay with it in theory, but when like you said, the rubber met the road, it was maybe a little more challenging. And are you able or willing to share a little more about like how that went for you, and like how you were able to move through that with Jamie?
Yeah, this was kind of I guess, I think I'm allowed to say this. This was pre-transition for Jamie. And so Jamie was presenting as a woman, dating a woman. Jamie says, okay, that's okay. I just got the thumbs up while I was saying that. So yeah, Jamie was presenting as a woman, dating a woman. And so for me, it was like, my girlfriend is dating a woman. And as a male, I think it kind of made it a little more okay because of that, the male fantasy of like having my girlfriend dating another woman kind of thing. And that of how that fantasy plays out in my head, and how that kind of makes it a little bit more okay, more acceptable in my head to be like, yeah, that's kind of how it felt. It was like, I was like, well, okay, it's not another guy, and that was how I felt then. And now, and then, and I still felt, still felt jealous, and I still felt left out, and, not hurt, but like I'm feeling these feelings. And I told Jamie this, and we talked about it, and they're my feelings. I didn't impose any of those on him and that relationship. And the more we talked about it, and like, just letting myself have my feelings. And I've been kind of working on that a bit in therapy at that time. And so I had my therapist to kind of like talk to about this, and just to be like, yeah, I'm allowed to have these feelings, and it's what I do with these feelings that affects our relationship. And what I do with these feelings is I talk to Jamie about it, and I don't know if we didn't come to like a conclusion, but it was more of just being able to feeling free to just express my feelings. And
right. Did you find expressing your feelings in that way like helpful? Just talking about them?
Yeah. It felt really good to like have that space to be able to just to express my feelings. And like, because if we look at jealousy and say jealousy is bad, you shouldn't be jealous, and if you are jealous, then maybe just keep it to yourself, like you bottle that up, and that's gonna bubble over at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've found that getting it getting things out, especially in the moment, is best for me. It's like, if I feel angry, then I'm going to be angry, but I'm angry now, and in 10 minutes I'm not going to be angry anymore because I did it already, you know, and or if I'm
Hopefully.
yeah, yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think again, I appreciate you sharing. I'm curious. So when Jamie started exploring outside of your relationship, did you or had you started exploring it all on your own at that point?
No, yeah, like I said, in all of my relationships previously, I was like, yeah, it was monogamous by default, almost. And the one time I guess I could say that I wasn't monogamous, and that was not a good, that was like 19, 20-year-old Jaret, you know, like seeing two women in different cities, you know, and like I would travel back and forth. And so I basically had kind of two different relationships, two different lives, kind of, you know, and that's not the same thing. That is not ethical non-monogamy because neither of them knew about each other. And when they did, it was over. And yeah, everybody was very upset with Jared, and you know, rightfully so. Because
You learned a lesson.
I was a 20-year-old, you know, trying to have it all, and yeah, I learned a lesson that like being honest about your feelings and about your relationship is really important. And that was kind of the only kind of the closest thing, I guess you could say, to non-monogamy that I had ever experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then but when Jamie started, I guess when Jamie had another partner or was starting to explore that, did you also start that exploration for yourself as well?
Not right away. Yeah, it was probably a few years, maybe a couple or a few years afterwards. I was like dealing in that time. I was like dealing with like my brain injury. I had a serious traumatic brain injury in 2011. Well, in the beginning in December 31st, 2011, January 1st, 2012. It was literally New Year's Eve. I was attacked and robbed at a bar, and I had a serious traumatic brain injury, and I didn't remember anything for about a week to 10 days after that. Like that entire 10 days is just a blur. And and so it was a pretty serious brain injury. And so from like 2012 to till now, it's like it still affects me in some ways. But so in that time, I was really dealing with a lot of the stuff. I didn't know that I had a brain injury. I had a serious eye injury as a result of the attack as well. And so I was getting made surgeries and, you know, treatments for that over like 3 years. And so I didn't really have an opportunity or like to even think about, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't you weren't focused on that in the moment. You had other things that were much more important.
Traumatic eye injury. Yeah, I wasn't focused on that.
Way to rub it in, Emma.
Sorry. Oh, that was bad.
Salt in the eye. Well done.
I am like, it was not intentional. But first off, I'm really sorry that you went through that. That's very, it's horrific. And I'm sorry that you had to do that and went through that. Since that time, have you explored, like, have you started dating other people at all? Have you tried that at all?
So yeah, since that time, I've like been just going online and like chatting with people, and I've actually kind of rekindled romances with exes. And one of my exes is she we've been chatting just online and stuff. And strangely enough, or not strangely enough, I don't know, she was one of the exes that was part of the triangle that she didn't know about.
Oh,
And like,
wow.
and now,
The
and to,
unwitting.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now today, like we had been chatting, and like we talked about it and we laugh about it and stuff like that. It's like stupid shit you did when you were 20. It's like, cool. We're grown up now, and we've had families. She has her own kids are like teenagers and stuff, and mine as well. And so like time has passed, so we're different people now. And so we started chatting, and yeah, I'm hoping that like we can kind of get together when I go back out to the West Coast at some point, whenever travel is a little safer.
Yeah.
So there's that, yeah. But it hasn't been anything like really serious. That's about the most serious that I've kind of explored. And like, I mean, I have like chatted with other people and explored, like kind of reaching out to people and chatting, but it's never really gone any further than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to ask you, you've mentioned a couple of times that there was a journey coming from the West Coast to where you're at now, which is much further east. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd be happy. Like I think I'm like probably 2.5 hours from Toronto, I guess, in Canada here. So just kind of give you a general idea. And when I was had spent like most of my life in BC, and like we traveled around, we go places in the summertime, and go down to California. We have friends, in like St. Louis, and also visiting family here in Eastern Canada. I had traveled around a bit, but what kind of prompted me to come out here actually was a horrific ending to a relationship where I was I was like dating this lady, and we had been together for about 2.5 years, and I thought that we were going to get married, and this, like, we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. I guess she had different plans, and I think like I guess we didn't really communicate too much about it, but yeah, like I think the relationship wasn't going the way that she thought it was going to go. And at that point, like when we had got together, I had my own place and stuff like this, and yeah, and like family stuff kind of had happened. And then at the point of the end of our relationship, we were living in her parents' house in their spare room kind of thing. And it was like, it was not comfortable. It was not, I agree, it was not going kind of like the way that we planned it. So yeah. So I left one day, and I came home, and the door was locked, and I was not allowed back in. And I was kind of upset, you know, and I was very sad, and I was confused because, like I said, I thought that like we're going through a rough patch, but we're committed to each other, and we're gonna keep on continuing with our relationship. And she decided no, that's not what she wanted. And and because of, I guess, the hopes that I had placed on this relationship, I when that happened, I spiraled like into depression, to the point where like more than a year after that, like I wouldn't leave my bedroom. I lived with my brother, and then I moved, and then I lived with my mom. And like I wouldn't leave my bedroom. I hardly talked to anybody. You know, I didn't have a job. And I didn't care. So my parental units were like, we're concerned about Jaret. And so they talked, I was 38, like, and yeah, 37, 38. And my parents were talking about me, like, we're worried about Jaret, like this is some major depression. And they decided that like maybe it would be better if I had a change of scenery. So my parents they had planned for me to move out to Ontario, and then they asked me if I wanted to, and it wasn't even so much as asking as like my parent came to me, and I don't know if you have this experience with your parents, like when you're little, and there are times when your parents come to you and they say, "What would you like to do? Would you like to stay home? Would you like, we're leaving, and would you like to stay home, or would you like to come with us? Or would you like to go out to dinner? Or would you like to go, go visit your friends, whatever." And they give you a choice. And then sometimes your parents come to you and they say, "Do this, get your bags, we're going now. No discussion."
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes sometimes it's like that. And so that's kind of how it was. Like I was 37 years old and my parents came to me and like, "Pack your bags. We're going to Ontario. Let's go." No discussion. And I was in a state where
it was an arranged moving.
Yeah. And I was in a state where I was just like, okay, no discussion, no argument. Okay. And it wasn't even like a conscious, like, well, I guess there's nothing here for me or anything like that. It was just like, like my parents said, "Let's go." So let's go. I think it was for the best. Yeah. I needed a change of scenery and I needed time to to gather myself and to figure out what I wanted.
Right. And it was shortly after moving, if I have this correct, that you met Jaret, correct?
That you met Jamie.
I'm sorry, that you met Jamie.
Yeah, actually, funny story. Yeah, like our story, our kind of meeting story is really kind of interesting, I thought. Because like I moved out here and I was like I said, major depression. And so I was like not even thinking about like being in a relationship or anything like that. Like I was like, nah, I'm not ready for that. After about, I guess a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, I can't remember. It was a while. I kind of felt ready to kind of like, maybe I'm ready to look out back into the pool, into the dating pool, because I was working, and I go to work 5 days a week and everything, but I barely talked to my coworkers. Some of my coworker that I worked with on 9 hours a day, she thought I was gay. like I didn't talk about women or relationships or dating or anything like that, or like going out and finding chicks or whatever, So she just thought I was gay. She was like, "He must be gay," And I was like, "No, I just didn't want any relationships or anything." It's like, so when I was about a year and a half, I guess a year, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I guess I'm ready to kind of like, check out dating and stuff." And I didn't really meet anybody. Like, went out to the bars with my friends and stuff. And, whatever, and didn't really meet anybody. And then my cousin was already in a relationship, and but he had met somebody else, and he wanted to kind of go meet up with this person, but he didn't want to go and meet up alone because that would look kind of suspicious to this other relationship that he's already in, that he's probably wants to get out of. I don't know. And so he says, would Jaret, would you come with me? We're going to go to the Halloween, the haunted Halloween maze kind of thing. He was volunteering at one of those, mm-hmm. And he had arranged to meet with somebody there. And so he had arranged to meet with this lady. And so he brought me as kind of like his backup, his wingman, kind of, And she had brought her friend as a backup kind of person. And the backup person for that lady was Jamie.
Ah.
So both of us had been dragged along on this, basically on a date that we didn't want to even get into a relationship or anything. We didn't know who the other person was or that there was going to be anybody else there. Like, my cousin had said, I'm going to meet up with this girl. I just want you to be there so it doesn't look fishy. And I'm like, okay, that sounds fishy. And then we arrived there, and then there was 4 of us. She had brought somebody as well, probably saying the same thing. I don't know. And then we went to Boston Pizza, and there was like, we talked for like an hour and a half, and both of us were quite confused as to why we were there. And they got together, like my cousin and that other lady got together, and they were together for probably I don't know, a couple of years, maybe 3. And that was like 2011. And they're not together anymore.
I was just curious because when I just remembering back, like Jamie had mentioned that you basically met at a Tim Hortons. Was that pre-Halloween party?
No, vice versa. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So the Halloween haunted maze was like, we had met at that one for like an hour, but like I said, neither of us really talked to each other or anything. We didn't know why we were there. And that was kind of like our first meeting. And then for maybe a few months, because my cousin was dating her friend, we were around each other and hadn't saw each other at just different social situations. So having seen this person in different social situations, like not dating, just different, group social situations and stuff, I was like, I'm interested. This is an interesting person. So I was kind of starting to feel that way about Jamie, like just kind of like having like curious, interested feelings about Jamie, and I knew where he lived, and so me and my friend, my cousin nephew, we were walking down the street, kind of through the same neighborhood where Jamie lived. And so we were walking past the Tim Hortons, and I was like, I want a coffee anyways. I want a coffee. And we walked into the Tim Hortons, and there he was, like just doing like I guess schoolwork or something like that in Tim Hortons.
I got it. Okay, so it was the first meeting was at the Halloween party.
Yeah, and then I went and like, I'm gonna go and say something right now. And so I literally went and sat down at the table and started telling the story about my life, about like we played kick the can with like this flaming pop bottle full of gasoline at one point. And it was just like, as you do when you're 10 years old,
And that broke the ice. And the rest is history.
Well, what I did was like, at the end of the story, kind of like, I was like, so I kind of like was telling the story and was like working up my courage to ask him, was like, so do you want to like go out on a date, like go, and the answer was like, no, I had something with my mom, birthday, my mom's having a birthday, and no. And I was like, maybe another time? No. And so it was just straight up no when I asked. And I was like, okay. So I just I said, I'm just going to write my phone number in your, and I grabbed a school book and like wrote my phone number in like the margin of the binder or the school book. And I was like, well, if you, if you change your mind or whatever, this is my phone number, and call me or something. And
here we are.
And so he thought about it. Yeah.
So one thing I was curious about is when you went through this process with Jamie, Jamie hadn't transitioned yet. So you
Correct.
were basically, you had a girlfriend,
Yes.
and now I guess you have a boyfriend, right? So like
Yep.
that's a big change.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess
That is
maybe like,
quite a big change.
right, like can you talk a little bit about that and how that has looked and maybe how that has impacted like your
Mm-hmm.
relationship with Jamie over the years?
Wow. Yeah. I think I kind of can't talk about that until I briefly kind of talk about my parental units. So my two biological parents. I grew up and I was raised by like my biological mother and stepfather and my biological father and stepmother. But when I was 19 or 18, 19, my biological father transitioned to become a woman, and so that was a journey, and that was something to deal with at 19. Yeah, and like I had my family or were like artists, and so growing up, I had seen many different types of relationships. Like men and women, women and women, men and men, and it was just like that's normal. Like different people do different relationships, and I kind of saw that, and so I was kind of prepared for my dad to tell me that he was gay. And when he said, when somebody sits you down and says, "We need to talk. I have something to kind of tell you," and I was like, "Okay, I'm ready for my dad to tell me that he's gay. I'm okay." And then my dad says, "I am going to transition to become the woman that like I feel like I am inside." And I had no I had no brain for that. I had no way of thinking about that or anything. And it took me a while to wrap my head around that. So, but that's something that I grew up with, like, when I was 19. And then, like, before I met Jamie, I think, yeah, like, somebody else in my family had come out as transitioning. So I'd kind of had experience with this. Is basically what I'm
Mhm.
saying. But I have no experience with like what Jamie and I have gone through is very unique. Yeah.
Well, so how has the relationship, I guess in your opinion, like how has the relationship changed, right? Because I like presumably, like you said, you weren't gay and you haven't talked about being bisexual. So you went from being in a relationship with a woman to being in a relationship with a man,
Hmm.
and you've stayed in the relationship.
Yeah.
So how has like have you then explored like does that lead you to exploring your sexuality or your gender, or
Hmm.
like what does that then imply for like the way that you and Jamie are in a relationship and the way that sort of you move through that?
Yeah. So yeah, when Jamie and I got together, it was yeah, boyfriend, girlfriend, and I like every other relationship previous, and when Jamie kind of like told me that he wanted to transition, I had I had to think about it for a while. Like I was like, I don't know, because it was kind of tangled up with my other parent, and I have to say that like my parent that transitioned is the parent that I was living with here, that both Jamie and I were living with. While Jamie was had his own place at first,
Mm-hmm.
but then we moved in together after my injury, and yeah, like Jamie moved in to take care of me. So we were living with my parent who had transitioned, and so that was really complicated. And it wasn't until like after my parent had passed away that Jamie um, I guess, felt safe enough to kind of like, or I'm not sure how that worked in his head. I wouldn't presume, but it wasn't until after my parent had passed away that he told me about that he wanted to transition and stuff like that. And for me, there was those complicated feelings, kind of with my parent, and like, kind of like, is this happening again, but not again? So there was like for me, there was a lot of complicated kind of feelings. And I didn't know, like, if I wanted to end the relationship, or like where I wanted it to go, or how it was going to go. And I felt very sad, and I mourned our relationship for sure. And we talked about, like, Jamie and I talked about it, and we talked about like mourning our relationship, and maybe that was the thing to do, was to end our relationship, to end our boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, and to begin a new journey. And it's been, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, and like, we still don't know what to call it.
Right.
Yeah. So you've
like, I don't
you're still
feel
in
sorry. I just wanted to say, I don't feel like I've ever been like bisexual. Like, I've had, sex with guys, and in my 20s and stuff like that, and it was fun, and I was like, but that's doesn't make me excited, and and I was like, just to kind of, I guess, exploring, that kind of aspect, and I was like, yeah, no, it doesn't really excite me. It's fun, but so I never really considered myself like gay or bisexual, but kind of open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it sounds though like you're still in a relationship with Jamie.
Yes.
And it sounds like you two have transitioned out of boyfriend girlfriend to something that, like you said, you have not found a good descriptor for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my question too, is how can you don't have a descriptor, like a name for your relationship, but can you describe what it looks like for the two of you?
Yeah, I would be really happy to do that. Yeah. I think how our relationship looks to me, like now, and like what we've kind of, the first thing that like I feel like we did was like kind of stop having expectations. Like, first to talk about our expectations that we do have, and then to kind of maybe let go of them. That was the hardest. That was the biggest, hardest thing for me, was because, like, having been default monogamous all my life, I had expectations that I didn't even consciously know that I had. So I had to like kind of explore those expectations. What do I expect from a girlfriend? Emotional support, the to do for my female partner, to do that emotional work. Like, that was a thing that I unconsciously expected of my partner, and I didn't. And until like I kind of like really kind of looked into my own expectations like that, it wasn't until then that it was like I felt like I could drop them, because and be able to do that labor for myself. That was the hardest, the first and hardest thing for me.
And so what did that look like? I guess maybe if you're willing to share, like within your relationship with Jamie, like the expectation changes that you saw happen.
There's lots and lots of talking. Like, at one point we had set apart like an hour a week on a day when both of us were like not doing other things, to just talk about our emotions and stuff like that. Like, I think it was almost, I don't know if it was a year or maybe a little bit more of just trying to do that. Like, we didn't do it every week, but we tried to, like every week, just sit down and talk about, what made us sad or angry or, feel not heard, and how that kind of made us feel. And that was doing the emotional work of like kind of me dealing with my own feelings and being able to just deal with my feelings in in an open way in our relationship. And so that was a big thing. We scheduled, and I'm not a big schedule kind of person. ADHD and prefrontal brain injury does not make for good scheduling. Executive functioning is impaired. No, that is like the medical diagnosis of my brain injury. So yeah, it was there was that, and like now, and like kind of knowing like that we are committed to each other and committed to being partners, for the long haul. Like, what how I expressed it to Jamie was like, I see us, sitting on the porch, just in rocking chairs with like grandchildren running around, and yeah. And that was because I'm a very visual person, and that was like the vision that I saw of our relationship. Does that make sense? Like, it's not, I didn't see like the trail that led there, but I see that vision of, like two old folks, sitting on the porch, watching our grandkids, play in the yard and stuff like that. And
But did that vision change?
Not at all.
Did the vision change after the transition?
Not at all.
No?
Yeah.
No, I think that's beautiful. Like, and like you just said, like that vision didn't change. So
right.
I thought, but what kind of made me misty thinking about it was like, I thought when we when we kind of like were talking about like ending our relationship, I was like so scared. I was so scared because I didn't want to lose that vision, And I thought that like ending our relationship and changing our relationship was going to change that vision that I had, and it made me really sad. And it was like through like lots of talking and stuff that like I came to the point of like excuse me, that like that vision still applies. We are still both committed to each other and to making a home here, for our children. Even though like we don't have biological children, the children I have from previous relationships are they're Jamie's children too, and yeah, and like my grandkids, when we're like video chatting and stuff, they call him Poppy Jimmy. They call him Poppy. Yeah.
That's really sweet.
And that's how they think. That's how they think of him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's filled that role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's emotional to talk about, but we appreciate you sharing because, it's obvious that the emotion behind it, when you're confronted with figuring out whether you need to end that relationship or whether you can figure out, how to change it and roll with the experience of supporting Jamie through the transition and how that's going to impact your relationship, like that was worth it to you. Mm-hmm. And so that's beautiful. That's beautiful. The two of you have gotten to the place where you're at now, and still have that vision of growing old together.
Yep. Yeah. And Jamie does he's very handy and like doing renovations and stuff, and that is like a physical part of our commitment to that vision, is like, fixing the house and like working around the yard and stuff like that. And this is the first time in my life that I've been fortunate enough to like have a stable relationship and to be like building it. Like we basically like own this property, so I feel like I have something, to kind of to share with my grandchildren and my children, like a space where they can come. And yeah,
it's beautiful. One of the questions I was going to ask you was, where do you see things in like moving in the future? But you kind of already answered that. So, like, do you see your relationship dynamic as far as being non-monogamous changing at all?
I mean, in terms of like changing in terms of like maybe I feel like I'm ready to kind of go out into the dating pool now and explore kind of that aspect of it. And so that is a kind of a change. And that is scary. That's scary and exciting all into itself. Because I have no idea like what that's gonna kind of how that's gonna feel. Because like I haven't done lots of dating in my life. Like literally, honestly, like when I was 16, when I was 15, like I met my first girlfriend and had sex with her for the first time, and like left home 6 months later to go live with this person. So that was like and that was my experience of dating. And after that first relationship, I kind of had a tendency to just get into like a serious relationship for a couple of years and then kind of break up or whatever happened. And then so I never really had kind of that experience of like going out and being on the dating scene and like dating new people every other week or every week or whatever. Like some of my friends, they were like, going out, like meeting people or dating new people every week, like just to kind of meet new people and to trying to find the right person. And that never was like part of my experience. Like that costs money, and I remember a time when I was probably about 11 or 12 where like we didn't have meat to eat. We only had beans, like, and like I lived in Vancouver, like, we lived in the city, like, and it just wasn't like it wasn't like my parents just weren't making enough money to buy meat. And like I remember my dad being really upset about it, and when I was 12, him and his friend went to outside the city and killed a cow and brought it home. And then we had meat. And that was like that's a poverty story from when I was a little kid. That was how we grew up, And there were other times like my dad, he had a kind of a construction company and we were doing better, but that was, that was later on.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, like there were times like when I was a kid, like, like when my parents always made sure we had, food to eat, but, it wasn't, it wasn't the fancy food, I guess, like
Right.
I was the kid at school every day who got made fun of for, like having a mason jar full of leftovers as my lunch, or like a mason jar of like homemade yogurt with some jam. I was pretty cool. I was pretty happy to have that. And like other kids would make fun of me because like I didn't have the boxed lunches or whatever that like, people had, or even like, regular sandwiches with the crusts cut off and bologna and stuff, like, I didn't have, I didn't know what a cheese slice was until like I went and visited my friends when I was like 10, like, it's like, what is this? He's like, it's cheese. Like, no, that's not cheese. Like my parents shopped at a co-op, at a food co-op, and we would get like a 2.5 gallon bucket of beans, a 2.5 gallon bucket of like cashews or like peanut butter, and like giant bulk things like that. Like because my parents had joined like this food co-op, and that was kind of that was how were able to have more food with kind of less income.
Right.
But like, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, all of that. How has growing up that way affected the way you and Jamie live today?
Well, like I said, it was like part of, like I didn't have that kind of dating experience. And I think, I don't think Jamie kind of had that, for his own reasons, didn't have that kind of dating experience. So we both kind of like came to our relationship with like not so much of an idea of like how of like knowing how our relationship was going to go. Like I knew that like like that like you meet somebody and you fall in love and maybe you move in together. That was kind of my experience, and like, and I knew that I kind of didn't want to do that, and so we were like we kind of brought our own ideas of like of a relationship, kind of like, because but we both, and then you talk about it, and then you're like, well, no, I never dated, I never went out on dates either, so we must have a lot in common. But there's those things that you assume that you have in common. You're like, then when you talk about it more and more, we're like, oh yeah, no, we didn't date each other, didn't have that dating culture for very different reasons. Like, yeah. And kind of, so I think not having a lot of money was something that we kind of both had in common, even though there were different cultural reasons for not dating. Not having a lot of money and kind of being frugal, and like, not being like, sometimes it's even hard to envision spending a lot of money on something, like
Mm-hmm.
if something came up, that to do or whatever, and it costs like $1,500, like that's a fuckload of money. Like, like that's like well, we're on disability, like kind of government
Mm-hmm.
assisted disability, and that's pretty much what I make, what they give us a month, so that's like a whole month's income.
Yeah, it reframes how you spend money for sure, and how,
Yeah.
like, if you want to go out and date, how you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it was interesting, like you said, like you kind of came into the relationship without expectations. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like it's carried through into all aspects. Like when you started exploring non-monogamy, when Jamie transitioned, like you constantly were in this state of like, we need to leave expectations at the door, and just have a relationship that works for us.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, like consciously saying that, and then realizing like I still have those unconscious expectations too, and kind of and seeing them and kind of owning up to them and talking with Jamie about them. Like, yeah. And it's definitely been a journey, and that's been something that thanks. I didn't really kind of think about it, but yeah, leaving my expectations kind of behind, has been like a big constant in our relationship for sure.
Well, but in like you said, they're even though you try or even though you do, like they still kind of hang out there in the background and they come up, and that can be difficult. And when you have to confront that and then figure out how to maneuver around it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything, Jaret, that we haven't talked about that you were hoping to talk about? We wanted to give you that opportunity before we let you get along with your evening.
Wow. Yeah, we've definitely covered a lot of ground. Thank you. This has been really fun. Yeah, I think one thing that I've really kind of thought of, and I kind of touched on it earlier about my parents and our community kind of having relationships kind of being more fluid. And I wonder if there was I don't have any research or anything to back it up. It was just kind of thoughts that I've had, kind of as a First Nations person, kind of I wonder, people say, well, non-monogamy is not a First Nations, not a traditional thing. And what is traditional things? And what are, traditional Native things? And I think about that. And I think, I think that a long time ago, people did do do relationships in the way that they needed to work. And if for whatever reason, you had to be travel far away and be gone for 5 years or a year even doing something, would you not, would you abstain from, having a relationship if you met somebody far away because you're going to be going back in a year? Or would you enjoy the relationship that you have now and then go return in a year and return to that relationship that you had before? And those things can coexist. And I have no facts about that, but that's kind of a thought that I and Jamie have kind of had is what is a non-monogamy relationship, and what is traditional, and and I think that is a bigger kind of question, is what is traditional, to get into that. But and I'd rather not right now. I would like to, but just kind of as it affects my life, I wonder whether back in the, I call it, back in the day, pre-colonial times, what were relationships like? Where was it? Was it fluid, or was it static, or people there were you have your relationship here and you have your relationship there, and and everybody is kind of open and communicating about it. Then what is the problem? Because I think that's as any relationship, is being open and communicating and not having expectations, but knowing that your expectations are my expectations. My expectations are my own, and I can't put my own expectations on somebody else. I have to be open, and I have to listen to what they have to say and what they're feeling and what their expectations are.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about relationships now.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for everything, and thank you for sharing that as well. It's been amazing talking to you, and I'm excited to get your story out there in the world as well. And I'm sure
I am.
We could talk for hours.
Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see that out, see my little conversation with you guys out there, because that's I don't know. It's so cool, to have listened to you guys for so long, and to kind of like fan out, and then to be like, what? You want to interview me? Like, I'm not interesting. So thank you. This has been really fun and really cool, and really like emotional.
Yeah,
And I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad that we covered as much ground as we did, and we covered a lot of topics. And so thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay in touch.
Yes, thank you. And it was great talking with you.
And we're back. A huge, huge thank you to Jaret for coming on and sharing your story. It was amazing to talk to you, and we're so thankful that you wanted to come on and share. And also a quick reminder that Jaret's partner, Jamie, also came on the show, and that episode is episode 184.
Yeah, definitely go and check that one out. And again, yes, thank you, Jaret, for sharing, and thank you, Jamie, as well. A couple of quick reminders. We've got the Patreon Q&As tonight, and there's still time to sign up if you're interested.
That's August 25th.
August 25th to join us. And also head over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the Community Events tab to learn about our virtual meet and greet and all of our upcoming in-person meet and greets in Ann Arbor, Atlanta, and Tampa, and more dates to be announced soon.
Yes, and next week, we have an interview with Emily.
Yes, this is a super fun one. Emily is the creator of Welcome to Kinkyville.
Yeah.
If you listen to episode 193, you'll remember that Sonia and Gabriel were talking about Welcome to Kinkyville. Gabriel is part of that team as well, and they're working on their Kickstarter campaign right now. So go check out episode 193. Amazing interview. And next week, we will have an interview with Emily to continue that discussion, but also to share her story. In the meantime, go to welcometokinkyville.com. Throw a couple bucks at their Patreon. They're almost to their, or not Patreon, Kickstarter. They're almost to their goal. It would be amazing to help them get over that finish line. So thank you in advance for that. And I think we will see you all next week.
Yep, I think that's it.
Every single person.
All of you. Come
Everyone.
back. Come back again.
All right. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.